Hut, and a good Wednesday to you all out there in my racehorse land. Nick Hines, the Sarge, reporting for duty on this midweek, and I am pleased, and we are pleased to be back at last. Of course, we've been on the road with the sales season in full swing, having been down at the Ocala Breeder Sale along with my comrade and good friend, our West Coast racing manager, Joe Moran, and the team. Of course, I want to welcome in that particular person. Of course, he's not only one of the best in the game, but I'm proud to call him one of my best friends. Hey, Joe, how are you today, brother?
Good. I'm happy to be back and ready for a good show today.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's one of those where we talk about the 365 days a year. Well, these horses have continued to train, and we've had a few horses that unfortunately were sent to the sidelines, including Deep Cover, as it was announced. But hopefully his recovery will be straightforward. He'll be back in the swing of things, hopefully this summer. It's unfortunate, you know, a horse that was within weeks of his debut.
Yeah, that's always the toughest part. And it really goes to show you how these horses are athletes. You know, being a former athlete, not quite an athlete anymore, but I still call myself a former athlete. You know, when you're training every day, just like a professional athlete, that's what these animals are. Unfortunately, these injuries do happen, but we always got to do what's best for them. And that's ultimately what I think is going to pay off in the long run for both the horse and the whole ownership group.
Absolutely. And a shout out from Dan Eberly. He said, glad to see that you haven't run out of time as far as hitting the gym. You look great, by the way. Nice haircut.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Sharp as a tack. And I mean, again, crazy to think that this is the last Wednesday of March. In fact, the last day of the month. We're already going to be into April. April Fool's Day tomorrow, so don't get tricked in whatever you do into believing whatever may come your way. Mike Matto, thanks for tuning in. So just basically wanted to touch on today's show. Of course, we're going to cover workouts. I believe we have a total of 4. And understand for the viewers out there that, you know, we're sometimes at the mercy of the content that is available. Of course, we could easily go out and take a cell phone and essentially record a workout, but our goal is to have the most quality programming and content available so that we can break these works down and provide our analysis. So exciting weekend ahead from a runner's standpoint, and we'll kind of touch into that. But Joe, we've got a special guest today, and Phil D'Amato. I'm excited. This will be the first time on a Wednesday work show that we will have brought in a trainer, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, anytime you get to hear it directly from the trainer, that's the best. And I want to say I don't want to say there's an argument, but maybe he's one of the hottest trainers at Santa Anita right now. The last few weeks, Phil's been just on fire, hitting on all cylinders. So let's hope that keeps going into this weekend on Sunday with Carpe Venum.
Yeah, absolutely. Having won 3 races in one day on March 21st, here is a trainer that is a multiple grade 1 winning trainer, in addition to one that has won in excess of 600 races in his career. And without further ado, let's welcome in the man, the myth, the legend, trainer Phil D'Amato, the trainer of Carpe Diem. Phil, thanks for tuning in today. I'm seeing that SE sweatshirt, but I'm gonna have to take it for now.
Yeah, this was the wrong day to wear it, but you know, it is what it is. What can I say?
Absolutely. Know that you're busy, and of course, you know, as a former trainer, people seem to think that trainers have a day off, but as you well know, no days off in horse racing, 365 days a year. And on days like today, I'm sure that you're out there at the farms kind of checking up on your stock. Am I right?
That's exactly what I was doing. I was barn hopping, or farm hopping, I should say, and almost made it back home, but not quite. But glad to be here with you guys.
Well, we greatly appreciate it. And once again, as the MyRacehorse program evolves, as we have these Wednesday work shows, proud to announce that you are the first trainer to come on board. So the idea, Phil, obviously you've had Carpe Venum since day one. This is a filly that's on the precipice of having earned 100,000. And, you know, I thought ran quite well in the Astra last out on January 17th. But before we jump into the workout, maybe give us, you know, some idea on how she's training, and knowing that you're going to have a lapse of roughly, if the race were to go this weekend, a lapse of roughly 10 weeks in between tries. How does that work for a trainer, and how do you keep these horses fit?
That's probably the hardest thing, especially while you're trying to develop a filly along the way. We've kind of isolated that she's, I would say, a marathon turf filly specialist. Although I think, on the right kind of race, she could go a mile and an eighth. But she's a filly. She's just getting better. She's putting on weight. She's filling out, getting stronger. Um, I put a lot of long gallops in between these breezes, a good bunch of 2 mile gallops in her. So she's as ready as I could have her off the bench. Preferably, I'd like to run her, every 5 or 6 weeks, but it's just not the case. I think later on in the year we'll have much more opportunity to get her on a more regular, race cycle. But she's doing really well.
All right, well, let's go ahead and pull up the workout that we have, and I don't know if you have the opportunity to see it, but evidently, these works without even having watched them because your horses forward and back. This is a workout, Phil, from March 28th, so this is our most recent drill. I know that you had messaged me just a few moments after what your thoughts were, so kind of take us through what this work was and what your intent was.
Well, my intent really was for her to breeze with Majestic Steps, who's a nice 3-year-old filly, and the horse behind them is Earl's Rock, running in the graded stake opening day at Keeneland, and he was just kind of do his own thing and use those two kind of to get him ready. But from what I like about this filly is that Carpe, she handled, I thought, Majestic Steps really well, and then you'll see on the gallop out, she that's where she excels. She'll gallop out really good, and I think that'll get her fit and ready to go for this race.
Nikki, you're on mute there, but I'm going to hop in real quick for a question for you, Phil, just because since we've talked recently about really changing up her training style of getting her going a little shorter half-mile drills, keeping her a little sharp. I mean, at least from a bystander being there really since she's first gotten to you, to me, it seems like her works have gotten better visually each and every week, and I've seen a difference in that. And ultimately, just what's your opinion since you've changed that up?
Yeah, no, I think so. It's kind of what you kind of want your horse to be the most comfortable doing what they like to do in order for you to get the best air out of them, in their workouts. In California at Santa Anita, we're not privy to, the grass works where I think would be optimal for her. So the training track in my eyes is the next best thing. And getting that, just keeping her happy with short drills where she's just kind of running through the lane as good as she can, and then putting the bottom in her in between with really long gallops. That's what she likes. And, that's what I did going into that last stake. I thought considering those fillies in that race, a bunch of older fillies with a lot more experience, I thought she held her own pretty well.
When you look at the works for her in general, and for the folks, the shareholders, and even the fans that may be tuning in, because this filly, she's worked essentially on the training track for nearly 2 years straight since you've had her in training. What is the purpose of that and the premise of keeping her on the training track versus working her on the main?
She's just much more comfortable on it. She gives me more, and that's kind of what I need. When a horse is more comfortable on that surface, they'll give you more and they'll breeze, they'll gallop out further, they'll get their air better. With these turf fillies, especially her, all I'm focusing on in these workouts is getting her as fit as I can get her. It's not put in different scenarios and sitting her behind horses, and she's just not that kind of filly. She's one that kind of, you get her fit as best you can in the morning, and she'll show up in the afternoon. And all these horses are different. They all have their own little, quirks and things that they like and dislike, but having her this long and knowing her, I think this is the best way to get what we need accomplished.
And Phil, lastly, or not, maybe not lastly, but upcoming, hopefully the race goes this Sunday. Can you just fill in everyone on what the target race is and the plans leading up there?
It's a 1.25 miles, 2 other than allowance. I think that should be a really good spot for. I'm pretty confident the race is going to go. I think that I've done my homework, and I know that there's at least 5 horses that should enter in that race. So it gives me a good feeling that when we enter tomorrow, we'll have a good shot of that race going on Sunday.
All right, we've had a couple of questions come in here, and I want to put you on the spot, Phil. We've got you on camera. Who will be riding Carpe Diem this Sunday?
We have Jose Valdivia, who I thought did a really good job of kind of getting the most out of her in that stake last time. I think if that horse that was the winner waited a little bit longer to make its move, it would have helped Jose engage Carpe a little bit better. But I thought, all in all, given the race shape, Jose did a great job and gave her some confidence there. And one little tidbit about it is we also learned that was a non-Lasix event, and our filly did not bleed 1 iota, which is really good to know down the road when we do run in these graded stake races, that we'll have a filly that can eventually compete in these races, hopefully, and not have to worry about her bleeding.
The last question from Chris Grabowski. With Carpe Diem, by the way, great answer. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
As a distance specialist regarding Carpe, what tells you most in watching her train that she is a marathon or an elongated distance type horse?
She has tactical speed, but she doesn't have a big giant turn of foot, but she can carry that tactical speed of a longer distance than most. And I think that just plays into her wheelhouse. I think you've seen from the races she's won, she's always kind of done it in a dogfight scenario. And usually you get those scenarios the longer you go, where the longer you go, the more you kind of put at bay the big turn of foot horses that can come get you. So it's more of a stamina game. And I think that really plays to her asset.
All right, Phil. Well, we know you got to get back to work as you are farm hopping, if you will, from place to place. And this Wednesday has truly been a privilege to have you come on the Wednesday Work Show. We wish you the best of luck, along with the MyRacehorse partners, and of course Joey Platts, who has been a tremendous partner with us in Carpe Diem. This Sunday we enter up tomorrow, and reports will go out to the shareholders. Hopefully the race goes, she gets in, and it will be all gravy from there. So thank you very much, Phil. We appreciate you.
Thanks, guys. Anytime.
Thanks, Phil.
Phil D'Amato. Yeah, it was nice to hear from a trainer's perspective, Joe. And he touched on many a point. The one thing that I can kind of relate to is the timing. You have a filly that hasn't raced since mid-January in a race in which she performed quite well. You're kind of at the mercy of a condition book, and when races are written, we're going to be sitting in April by the time this filly's able to run back. So it's quite an art to keep them fit and keep them sharp and happy to get them into that race.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The one thing I'll tip my cap to Phil D'Amato, he pays a lot of attention to all these horses. He's got a lot of them, but every morning you see him there, and he's got them dialed down in the schedules. He knows everything about each and every horse. I mean, my favorite thing is, we communicate with Phil very often, and something that he may have told us 3 weeks, that answer was exactly the same what he said on the show today. And it just really shows you how much he pays attention to these horses.
Again, it's one of those where sometimes you get trainer fluff. You don't get trainer fluff with him. I mean, he'll be the first to call you and say your horse belongs in this particular race. Yeah. I respect the fact that he said, hey, let's give it a chance in running her in the Astra, where she did not disgrace. He had mentioned the winner Quick, who incidentally hasn't come back to race. And if she's able to step up into this next level allowance on Sunday and perform to expectation, then we've got some things to look forward to, because it takes a special kind of horse to go beyond the conventional mile or a mile and a 16. You know, for her to go a mile and a quarter and get those marathon type distances, there's certainly plenty of money that pays out at that given level. So big thank you to Phil D'Amato, and of course, Hannah producing behind the scenes of the workout. I thought it was a great move. And what was your take from the workout? Were you surprised that she posted up that type of a final time?
Yeah, I mean, just very unlike her. And that's I guess I really wanted to get his feedback of changing her workouts in the most recent 4 to 5 weeks, I'd say, is when he really moved to those sharper half-mile works. When we saw that time come up, we were sitting next to each other. We said, wow, that must have been a really good work right there. And visually, it looked like it. I mean, regardless of Earl's Rock, he's a quality 3-year-old colt. And he was asked to do it to go by Carpe. So Carpe was still never asked. Even when that horse went by, the rider was sitting chilly. That was my favorite part of it. And we know she's not one of those horses that's going to go out there and work 59. So for her, to me, that was a strong work.
Yeah, a minute change on the training track. I think if you look at the par average, that was, to me, at least 3 to 5 lengths above what the average conventional time would be for that surface. But he answers so much in a short amount of time, even added the Lasix aspect of it, because the new rule in California for the older horses, if you run in the stakes, graded stakes, whatever it may be, unless you're a Calbred, the Calbred stakes can go Lasix. But in her case, she couldn't race on Lasix. So to go that distance, scope clean, it's nice to know that she's not one of those horses that has to work, train, race, whatever on Lasix. She's a horse that, knock on wood, she's been very sound and straightforward.
Yeah, and the one thing to go on with that, when I talked to Phil, right after that race, the other thing he mentioned is, as these horses approach Del Mar, where it gets a little more humid and hot, which can make a horse more prone to bleed, it made him a lot more excited, saying, hey, when we get down there, we have a filly that's not going to – we don't have to worry about it. You could tell he got a little excited that if she can take that next step up, we could possibly have a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, even just, in your day-to-day races where you can use Lasix, I mean, they've limited you now to just 5 cc's of Lasix. And as a former trainer and a trainer that had numerous claiming type horses, I can't even imagine training, in this era, in this decade, if you will, as far as having those limitations. But there's so much that goes into that process. But again, very informative and appreciative having Phil D'Amato come on board. So she enters tomorrow for Sunday. I'm super pleased with the work and her progress. Jose Valdivia Jr. will be back aboard. He's now acquainted with her. That's another positive. For sure. For a rider who's won classics on turf and had ridden for the late, great Bobby Franklin, ridden some great horses and winning Breeders' Cup miles for the late Julio Canani. It's a positive that you've got a class rider like Jose to climb back aboard. All right, well, let's move on the program. And this will be actually the first time that we've had one of the favorites out there in MyRacehorse-ville, and it would be Lady Valentine, daughter of Into Mischief, out of the hard-spun mare, My Lady Lauren. She was a $385,000 Keeneland September yearling purchase. Where is she in the grand scheme of things as we jump into a workout here on March 22nd?
Yeah, so she's in the early stages. The work that we're going to be looking at is actually her first recorded work back, which was on March 22nd. She did breeze back a half mile on March 29th. But we're going to take a look at this first work here that we had courtesy of XBTV. And you can see she's really matured and filled out. That was one of the biggest things that we saw when she first got into training as a 2-year-old. I want to say she was almost too big for her own good at that stage. She hit a growth spurt. She was kind of big. She wasn't quite grown into her whole body. Now, for me, visually, I'm not seeing her on an everyday basis, but through this work, she looks like she's starting to fill into herself. This work was obviously an easy maintenance drill, but I thought she did everything very well. She handled it well. So I think as the screws begin to get tightened, per se, in the coming weeks, as she starts to have a little more work thrown at her, we'll see how she handles that. Yeah, certainly the fact that she was given time, she certainly has more of a robust appearance to her, as you had alluded to. And, when you look at the works, I mean, she's essentially jumped right back in the scheme of things, this being her first workout, and more recently, and we'll have that work for you next week from
just 2 days ago. And once again, thank you to XPTV for providing this. But being out of a mare that didn't start until the age of 3, in which she broke her maiden and career start number 3, gives you some indication that with time, this is what she had required. But certainly looks good. Obviously, I think the drill here is very straightforward. And I think she did this 3/8 with relative ease.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I would consider this simply a maintenance move. It's a starting point for her, right? It's for Todd to see how she reacted, how that time off did for her. For me, she's traveling great here. She's hitting on all cylinders when she's hitting the ground. So everything that we wanted her to show off the layoff, I mean, we got to be happy here and hope she just continues to progress well.
All right, so likely she would be coming back with another half-mile drill next week, or essentially having the 2. She had a 3/8 a half, so likely she'll go another half-mile work next week.
Yep.
And we'll keep you apprised on her progress. So Lady Valentine, born, that's right, on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2018. So aptly named, and with a partnership with Spendthrift, we look forward to her progress. Yeah, and she's another horse. Unfortunately, and we can touch on this, Joe, with American Heiress, with the effort over the weekend.
Yeah,
we had the live show on MyRacehorse for the watch party. It was unfortunate. The reports are that she had bled, going to be given some time, but I'm confident that she'll recover rather quickly out of that. Although when horses bleed, it's important to give them that time, and thankfully we have the opportunity with MyRacehorse. You put the horse first, and they'll reward you down the road.
Yep, 100%.
And I also appreciated the feedback from Johnny V. He pretty much said in terms, he had a horse, and then her stride completely changed. So we'll look forward to her getting back on the beam. But again, Lady Valentine, nice to see you back on the work tab and progressing as she may. All right, well, let's come back west, if we will. And you and I, we've obviously been watching this horse very closely. Son of Run Happy, and that's Popular Demand out of the mare Mind's Eyes. And what's the latest with Popular Demand?
Yeah,
and where is he in his training?
Yeah, so Popular Demand, he had his first half mile back. I know when you look at the Equibase work tab, it listed it as his second official work. It was actually his third. So, we had a decent layoff with him where he spent time at Peacefield Farm and just slowly got things going. Then he went to Julie Stacks, got some jogging under him. We had a little bit of rain with the wintertime. So that layoff process took a little bit longer than expected. I'd say, maybe he was 3 to 4 weeks behind what the anticipated schedule was originally. But since he's hit the track, he's moved right along. He is on the outside here in this work with the red sleeves. When you watch that work, and we'll see that start again as well, he actually broke very sharp. And then he kind of idled for a second, almost like he threw his ears up and said, okay, what now? But he responded quickly. He made up that ground within the first eighth of a mile. He's working with a very quality colt of Subconscious by Tappet. He's also unraced, but trainer Richard Mandela had some good things to say about him. He said he was working with a good mate. And this was actually the horse on the inside's third half mile work. So from a fitness standpoint, this horse had a lot more advantage on Popular Demand. So I would say here, you're going to see they're going to complete this half mile work at the quarter pole right there. But Popular Demand finished to that quarter pole very well. I would say he did get a little bit tired on the gallop out, but I think it was beneficial. He's going to gain a lot out of this work, and you're going to see him continue to improve.
Well, on workout, as far as the paper works, people will note that his first work back was on March 20th. Give us some idea on what took place prior to that, and do you recall what his first day back at the track was?
Off the top of my head, I can't remember the first day back on the track. I want to say, let's see, this was his second work. So I want to say beginning of February. I want to say second week of February is when he got back. He had jogging under him before. When he first hit the Mandela barn, he did spike that temperature. So we missed about 10 days in that span. He had a few days of galloping. Then he had that temperature, and then he had to kind of get back in the groove of things. So when they started him out, we had videos of him. where he went 2/4 mile works in company just to kind of get that base fitness back up before they started going 3/8 miles and really pushing them a little bit to the next level. So for me, I'd say he still has a little bit ways to go, but I would say we're probably looking in maybe the 5 to 6 week range of being maybe race ready. Mandela usually gets them pretty ready under his works. He's not one to rush them. We've been patient with him to this point. So at this point, we want to make sure he's 100% before we find a race.
Well, and also to note, for those that don't remember, obviously last year in the month of May, he had 2 gate drills. So it wasn't as if this workout that you saw from the gate was the first time that he ever breezed from the starting gate. So we kind of saw a pattern with Naismith, for example. Yeah. And I'm kind of getting the impression that it's twofold. Obviously, you're wanting to get a horse schooled and get them to assert themselves. But I also think this is almost like a test of fitness from Richard Mandela. Not so much trying to increase and input speed, but it's kind of getting a gauge on where they're at fitness-wise. Would you tend to agree with that?
Yeah, no, that's a great point and observation there, and I would tend to agree with you. And I would say, I don't want to speak for Mr. Mandela, but from his reaction of this work, being there with him, I would say he passed the test. I think Mr. Mandela was challenging him a little bit in this work. It was quick to go right from the gate when you really look at that pattern, and also to match him up with the mate that he did that had the experience from a fitness standpoint, I think was throwing a lot of challenges at him. So I would say he checked all the boxes there.
Well, it's interesting to note that the mate subconscious, right at about the 5/16 pole, you're going to note that the rider actually kind of took the stick on that one to kind of keep him forward. But what I can appreciate is the gallop out here, as we see, Popular Man, I think for a gate workout on paper of 47-2, I'm more than pleasantly surprised. So the progress noted in my eyes, and maybe you can correct me, but I feel as if he's ahead of schedule, especially considered when he came back in February, he spiked that temp, it set us back. He had only been jogging primarily on the farm. So these first steps back, which often with a young horse like this, up until a 5/8 point would be easier than if you're starting from ground zero, because we remember last year, prior to that setback, he had already gotten to that point. So his lungs have expanded at least to the point in which he went 5 furlongs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would say one of the great things that I appreciate that Mr. Mandela does is, though you said, he had that time just jogging on the farm, but right, from the standpoint of when they get to the track, though it does seem a little bit longer from the layoff perspective, he's still at the farm, he's not getting back to the track. But in the grand scheme of things, once he gets to the track, it allows them to move right along in their training a lot quicker than if we had to accomplish that, 21, 30 days or even 14 days, depending what it was for popular demand of jogging days.
Yeah, I love what I'm seeing from him. Yeah. And, we're starting to see these run happies. They're starting to fire. He's got a couple of horses that were whispers on the Derby trails. So certainly the timing, the time given, hopefully will be an end blessing for a horse that, appears to have plenty of upside. And the fact that he has the foundation, if you will, I think it is indicative that we have much to look forward to in Papa Mandela's barn. All right. So, yes, great to see him back. And as we stay west and in the Mandela barn, 'tis a magician. Now, this is a horse that coming out of the Grade 1 Santa Anita Handicap, finished 5th, had trouble in the first turn. Since the race on March 6th, he has returned with 2 half-mile workouts, with this one being just 2 days ago, half-mile spin. You were there. What were your thoughts on this particular one?
Yeah, I was ultra pleased. He's a horse that he's very willing to work, so we always expect him to work well. But when you see a work like this where exercise rider Nestor, he never moves on this horse the entire work. And for the horse to work 47-4, the way he did it all on his own, the horse is doing well. Most importantly for me, that's the way I gauge it. You got a healthy horse that's doing well right now. And he's out here just doing his job, enjoying himself. So for me, this was a very, very solid work. And, obviously they're not trying to crank him up yet. We still got a couple weeks till the targeted race of the Californian as of right now. That's the plan and what we're going to kind of train him up till. But I think they're very pleased with this. And you'll note on the gallop out, Nestor he gets right to him. He didn't want him to do too much at this stage. Being a few weeks out, they didn't want him to overdo himself. But all in all, this was a very good work.
Yeah, the race day is April 17th. Is that correct?
Yes, April 17th. I believe nominations close on the 8th. So the one thing I know, it's a common question with Drayden Van Dyke, who's been our regular pilot, and things really started going well once he hopped on Tiz Magician's back. Now that he's went to Kentucky, who will ride him? That's still in the works. We are still working on that, and Team Mandela will make sure we get it handled, but we still got some time. But that final decision has not been made as of yet.
Touching on the Santa Anita handicap and the trouble that Tiz Magician encountered in the first turn, we actually take the clock back to the Grade 3 Tokyo City when he went the 1.5 miles, and there was no doubt that he handled the distance that particular day. But if you were to stipulate the ideal distance for the son of Tiz now, in your mind, what would that be?
1.1 1/8. I think that's kind of perfect for him, because I think it allows him to kind of get in that comfortable stride early that he likes to do. I mean, the biggest thing for him is he doesn't want to be fought early. He doesn't want to be his mouth get pulled on. So you want to let him get comfortable in that stride and just go at his pace. And I think that 1.8 mile distance ultimately fits him perfect. He's got enough where he can last the whole way. Not that he can't get 1.25 miles. I think he still can. But at that distance, when you're running 1.25 miles, you're likely running against the top end classic horses. And also, from a pace dynamic, when you go that first quarter, if you go sub 46 per se, going 1.25 miles, it's going to ask a lot. So, in that type of race, those fractions might be demanded. But the 1.1 miles, I think, what we saw from him in that allowance race kind of hits him, right between the eyes.
It's interesting when you look at the stakes book. Obviously, the Californian is that perfect distance, as you suggested, at 1.8 miles, the Grade 2, April 17th. But the following day, there's a Tokyo City Cup again, Grade 3, for 100,000 for half the money. So would there be the chance that he could be nominated for both, or is the target 90% the Californian in the perfect world of imperfection?
Yeah, I would say the target is 90% the Californian, but saying that, we'll probably nominate him to both. Just keep your options open. And you just you never know how the entries are going to come up. So you always pay attention to both races. With them being a day apart, you nominate to both and kind of go from there.
All right, we've got a few minutes here for some questions. And Mara brings in the question, what does the term form, quote unquote, refer to? As in comments I've seen by handicappers to say a horse was below form in a particular race. Is this how a horse looks running, or is it something else?
Yeah, so you would refer that to his recent running form, his running line, so that, whether it's his past 2 or 3 or most recent race, of really what his current status is, how his running lines are. And ultimately, if a horse is below form, he's either below his average or below the average of the horses that he's running against.
Right. Great question. Again, form can mean a number of different things. I could say, hey, Joe, can you grab me a form? And you know exactly what that means, right? Yeah. A racing form. But hey, John Lee. Hey, Horse Beach. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. All right. So it was essentially short and sweet on the works we've had today, Joe. But who is your favorite workout of the Fearsome Foursome?
It's tough. I'm in between Carpe Venum and Tiz Magician. I want to say visually, Tiz Magician just did it so easily that it was probably my favorite work. But for Carpe Venum, I thought it was one of her best works maybe ever that we've seen from her. So, it's leaning me close, but I'll probably have to give the nudge to Tiz Magician.
Well, I'll have to go with the Carpe Venum. Again, a minute and change drill over the training track. And a wise man once said, a horse can often be judged by the company he or she keeps. And the fact that she had worked in with stakes types and was no disgrace at all. In fact, I felt the rider had a little more in reserve. For me, it was a pleasant surprise. She'd been very straightforward in her AM drills and her AM activity. And, I'm hoping that come Sunday, it will all work out for the patience of trying to find the right race. And as shareholders, as partners, we'll be saluting. And, of course, she'll be covered on a watch party as well. I know you'll be out this weekend, as will I, and we'll be rooting her home pending that race going, entering tomorrow, Thursday, for Sunday. That allowance 2-time, other than going 1.25 miles, should be a nice setup for a spring-summer campaign. Well, all right, Joe. Anything to add today for the show? I thought it went great.
Yeah, I thought it was a great show. I want to thank Phil D'Amato again. I thought his information just brought so much to the table, and it's always great when you have a trainer that takes the time to fill us in like that. So we'll make sure anyone that joined late that missed his segment, we'll get that clipped up and add it to the updates page so you can go back and watch it again. But yeah, no, excited. I'm just excited for Carpe Venum as a handicapper, as a horse owner in my life. When you see a horse training the way she is, you have to think that she's coming around at the right time. So for me, let's hope it all pays off on Sunday.
All right, absolutely. Again, thank you, Phil D'Amato, of course, behind the scenes, Hannah, putting it all together. Excellent work, my friend. And to you, the fan, of course, those shareholders out there that make that owning a racehorse a reality, My Racehorse certainly appreciates you. Thanks for tuning into the Wednesday Work Show. Be sure to tune in next week. And remember, these shows are interactive. If you've got questions, you've got thoughts, opinions, feel free to share them while we're on the air. And you know how to reach out for Hannah Bloom. She, of course, can address those questions so we can provide those on the show if need be. Enjoy the remainder of your day. And, of course, until next time, hey, don't forget the Friday, My Racehorse Live. We'll be back on the beam, and, of course, to get you updated and some more insight, of course, from Hannah with features that she has provided. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Joe, thank you. And until next time, we'll see you in the winner's circle.